Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Joy Asonye live program here. A happy Good Friday to you, even though that sounds a little funny to say when you say happy Good Friday, but I'm hoping you're having a wonderful Good Friday as you are watching us here today. My name is Joy Asonye and it's good to know you are there. Well, today on the program we are moving the conversation to Ebonyi State. The PDP did not do very well as the gubernatorial candidate did not emerge winner, and there are several problems and issues that the PDP was facing in the state, and that's what we'll be focusing on today. And in the studio with me to discuss all of that is Tochukwo Okorie. He's the PDP chairman in Ebonyi State. So good to have you join us. My pleasure. Okay. Viewers. Yes, we'll go for a short break right now and return to discuss more. Stay with us. This is still Joy Asonye Life. Welcome back. The Travails of the PDP in Ebonyi State. That's what we're discussing on today's program. And like I said earlier, Tochukwo Okorie is here with us, the PDP chairman in Ebonyi State. We'll be exploring all that transpired. Why did the PDP not emerge after all that was speculated? I mean, we had polls that suggested that we will see the PDP emerge. My first question to you is, first of all, what's going on? I mean, we see it seems like we have parallel factions in Ebonyi State, the PDP. I mean, we here you are the PDP chairman, and there's another who is also parading as the chairman of the state. So let's start from there, and if that even is a reason why the PDP did not do so well, although I hear that your gubernatorial candidate has gone to court, to approach the tribunal rather, to fight that elections. But let's start from the PDP chairmanship. What's going on there?
Okay, good evening, viewers. To put it in proper perspective, we have only one state chairman of PDP, and that is me speaking with you. That is not to discountenance the fact that an imposter who have been challenging the outcome of the state congress since 2021 has been or has done everything humanly possible to ensure the disruption of activities in the state chapter of the party. And that has led to myriad of challenges.
Right.
All right, and I think that summarizes the case of chairmanship as it is right now. The matter of who the authentic chairman is still a subject of litigation, as we are before the Supreme Court of Nigeria. You know, myself and one Asonye, who contested the state chairmanship position with me in October 16, 2021, and has since then been become a disruptive factor in the party. So that's where we are.
Okay, I would not want to go into a case that's already with the Supreme Court, of course, but how did the past elections go? I mean, did you have your people mobilizing for the PDP while he had his, or you put that aside to work towards ensuring the party won? Did you work in cohesion? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Unfortunately, I mean, I wish I could answer that in the affirmative, but like I said, his intransigence was quite disruptive, and that cost us the election, so to speak. Besides the fact that he kept parading and causing disruptions. The person who also paraded himself as candidate of the party at the gubernatorial level, unfortunately, did not have the support of the party in the state for a number of reasons. The party in the state had reasons to withdraw support from him, and without doubt, the outcome was predictable.
Okay, so apart from the tussle, the chairmanship tussle in the state structure was not supportive of Ifeanyi Odi.
No, it was not.
Wow.
It was not.
Why would you say that? And I would like to ask, if the state was not in support of this candidate, how did he emerge a candidate of the PDP? And why did the PDP not do something about a candidate who, as you have alleged, does not have the support of the state structure? I should expect the PDP wants to garner as many states as they can.
Well, it's good that we are on this program, which will further avail the public the opportunity to know.
Right.
In furtherance of previous outings we have had, explaining what was going on when they were all going on, and now that the deed is done, it's also good to speak to the public. The run-up to the primaries, as a matter of fact, dates way back to 2021 in what we call State Executive Committee, which is the highest policy-making body of the party at the state level, akin to the National Executive Committee at the national level, had taken a decision based on what we call the geopolitical balance of the state, a common feature in almost every state of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
What you call zoning.
Exactly.
It happened that the outgoing governor, His Excellency Engineer Ebonyi, comes from Ebonyi South. And because he's done 8 years, naturally, it will be the turn of a different zone
right,
to produce the state governor. On account of which, it was then agreed that Ebonyi South would not present itself for the office of governor
right,
in PDP. However, in compensation, the state chairmanship position was zoned to Ebonyi South, which was why, in the first place, I emerged as chairman.
Okay.
Even the person contesting the position of chairman with me also is from Ebonyi South. Nobody outside Ebonyi South offered himself for that position because it was well understood that Ebonyi South will produce the chairman and the governorship ticket will go to somewhere else other than Ebonyi South. Now, in the scheme of things in Ebonyi, the state at inception, all right, had what we call the Abakaleke block and the Afikpo block.
Okay.
You would recall that Ebonyi was created from both old Enugu and old Abia states.
Okay.
What is known as Ebonyi South today was carved from Abia North. It used to be part of Abia North.
Abia North, right.
And then the other part, known as Abakaleke block, came from Enugu. Okay, so at inception, this was always the basis for sharing. All right. Unfortunately, politics being what it is, it became like what do you call it? Survival of the fittest, if you liked. where whoever had the financial muscle could disrupt the arrangement and pick the governorship. Even though that was resisted at every point in time, a pattern then developed away from that original arrangement. Because whereas the understanding ab initio was that, okay, there were two sites, proposed sites or locations or towns, as it were, for state capital. One was Afikpo, the other was Abakaliki.
Right.
Now, Afikpo, as you can imagine, is from Afikpo block, which was the Abia part of the state, Abakaliki from the Enugu part of the state. Their understanding at the time was, if the state capital would have come from one zone, then the first executive governor would come from the other
zone. Right. Which is what is replicated in other states, really.
Yes. But that didn't happen because for some reason, and I dare say for some very unethical reason, both the state capital and the first executive governor were both lumped in one place, one region, one political bloc, which was Abakaliki. His Excellency Dr. Sam Egu, who was the first executive governor, came from Ebonyi North, which was part of Abakaliki bloc, even though the state capital was Abakaliki. So he created an aberration, a departure from the agreement. Now, in this election round, PDP thought it necessary to revert to that old arrangement, where it was either Abakaliki block or Afikpo block. However, some people insisted that since a three-zone pattern had emerged, going from north to central, then to south, I mean the governorship position,
right,
that zoning pattern should be maintained rather than reverting to the Abakaliki Afikpo, which was a two-dimensional arrangement. Well, for, again, political expedience, the leaders of PDP at the time, this was discussed and agreed before I emerged as chairman. It was on the strength of that agreement, that understanding, that I emerged coming from Afikpo block, which is the same as Ebonyi South.
Which you just balance it.
So now only for somewhere along the line, a gentleman who happened to be not just from Ebonyi South, but practically, to all intents and purposes, kit and kin to the outgoing governor, and someone I can rightly call an elder brother, not in the sense of Labour Party, well, someone who I can actually, a younger brother rather, because it's much younger than I am, you know, because we are from the same contiguity. What used to be Ohozara local government before it was split into three local governments.
Exactly.
Now, in Ebonyi South, we have the Afikpo zone and then the old Ohozara, which we call Ohanivo. These two political units make the Ebonyi South. Both units came from Abia. So, in sharing political positions or any other thing, this understanding is always there. Because this was Afikpo local government and Ohozara local government, which now has been split into 5 local government. Afikpo got Afikpo North and Afikpo South. Ohozara got Ivo, Ohozara, and Onitsha local governments.
Okay.
Okay. So the young man, Mr. Ifeanyi Odi, who tumbled in and insisted he would be governor.
Insisted?
Yes.
There was no democratic process, the
I
primaries?
will address that.
Right.
At least by his intentment, he was insistent against every good advice. All right? He insisted he would run. The guy happened to come from Isu, and Isu and Uburu, where the outgoing governor comes from, share boundary. Are you with me?
Very well.
Good. So Isu and Uburu share boundary. They have common boundary. There's Isu on this side and Uburu on this side. Then Onitsha and opposite, all within the same contiguity.
Did you also, you just said against good advice, were you one of those people that stood against his emergence as gubernatorial candidate? Okay.
Naturally. His ambition was dead on arrival, as it were, because it was an affront against the decision of the highest policy-making body of the party in the state, which is the State Executive Committee. And it is that decision of the State Executive Committee that brought me in as chairman. Now, it is, in my view, unimaginable, unthinkable, that I would now come and reverse that arrangement to accommodate someone who, to all intents and purposes, was just, being disruptive.
Being disruptive. How then? I need to get to the point where he emerged candidate of and flag bearer of the state.
Now, a lot went into that. And I do hope time allows us to go all the way.
I don't know how much it is, but we can concise it. Yes.
So, but here's what happened. The young man, Mr. Odi, happened to be the sole sponsor of the other young man who is contesting my office with me.
Okay.
With whom I am before the Supreme Court as we speak. Now, the plan all the time was, if the guy had made it as chairman, it would be an easy ride for him to emerge as candidate. Now, in the interval, okay, let me backtrack a little. On April 13, in 2022,
okay,
Federal High Court removed me from office, sponsored by Ifeanyi Odi, very, very clearly.
Could that be because you stood against his emergence?
No, at this point, nothing was even clear yet.
Right.
He was behind the scenes.
Okay, but he knew that the other gentleman
he was the one that sponsored, even though the stakeholders in Ebonyi South had bought into my aspiration to become state chairman. He insistently kept pushing the other young man, all right, and aided his approach in the courts, which eventually resulted in my temporary removal.
Yeah, alleging something. Do you have evidence to the fact that he sponsored behind the scene? Because you just mentioned behind the scene.
It's not.
When you say behind the scene, it means that he didn't come out to allay that.
It's not a secret that even on the day of the state congress, that he mobilized massively against me in support of Salas Ono. It's no secret. It's no secret.
Did the mobilization work?
No, but of course it did not work because I won landslide. Now,
right. In spite of the mobilization,
he did his best,
right?
All right, to undermine my own aspiration. But I came out the winner in a very clear. It was a landslide. It wasn't even like so keenly contested. Now, why he went to court was that he thought he could fault my application by trying to disqualify me ab initio on the basis that I did not submit my nomination forms within record time. So he didn't contest that he lost the election. So he wanted on technical grounds to pull the carpet
disqualify
from under my feet. And through the process, I met with Mr. Odi and pleaded with him in the interest of the party and the generality of Ebonyi people that he should step down on this chairmanship thing. And
at the time, you didn't know he had intentions to run for governor.
He didn't make those intentions known. A few people
there were speculations, right?
Speculated on those things. So it was within that unfortunate interregnum that Asonye smuggled him in, and I use that word I use that word deliberately.
Smuggled.
Yes. The reason for that is, while we were still dealing with the issue of chairmanship, they quickly got the National Working Committee to set up panel to come and conduct world congresses and primary elections for all the positions, including governorship. Unfortunately for them, before they could complete the process, on the 23rd of May 2022, Court of Appeal, which I had approached, all right, granted us stay of execution of the decision of the Federal High Court.
Okay.
Returning parties in that suit to status quo.
Which is you being
which is now returning me as chairman.
Right.
This was on the 23rd of May. But in their wisdom, the national executives of the party still used Asonye to convene a state congress on the 29th, 5 clear days after the judgment or the ruling of the Court of Appeal.
So the PDP national did not
they failed
to follow the court proceeding,
the judgment,
verdict, right,
of the decision of the Court of Appeal. And that singular error is the subject of the second matter that is presently pending before the Supreme Court.
Right.
Okay. Now, so that triggered a whole lot of ripple events. All right. There was in fact, the national executive of the party had to cancel the primary election that brought Mr. Ifeanyi Odi for failing to meet the minimum standard and for realizing that they had used the wrong person. Now,
the wrong person in this instance is based on the fact that he comes from a place.
No. That they had used the wrong person as chairman to convene a state congress.
Right.
The constitution of the party makes it clear. In fact, it is crystal clear. Only the state chairman, can convene state congress.
Exactly.
Only the state chairman can convene state congress. Now, Asonye, being a nobody, as a matter of fact.
In your opinion?
Not in my opinion, in the records of the Court of Appeal.
Because he has the backing of the national. That's why I say it's in your opinion.
It is not my opinion. The national cannot overrule the Court of Appeal. And that is where the problem of the party actually began. For anybody at any level to arrogate to himself or herself the ability to sidestep the judgment of the second highest court of the land.
what would, for people who are listening to us and wondering, who did you annoy? Because if the Court of Appeal also stepped in here, why did the National, in your opinion, what would you say is the reason why the National did not back you after that Court of Appeal verdict?
No holds barred. No holds barred.
I appreciate that. Please go ahead.
We had several meetings, the stakeholders of Ebonyi PDP, with the National Executive Committee of the party, led by no less a person than the national chairman himself, Dr. Yachiayu. And in several occasions, before the camera, in full glare of everybody, had said that Mr. Odi was not qualified to run for the election. He should go and withdraw his aspiration. That happened a number of times. Now, how all of that changed 360 degrees is left to your imagination. I will not be part of discussing what I don't know. Do you understand? So for people to take a particular position today and then in 24 hours that position has changed, I mean, I have to be some sort of spirit to know what,
understand exactly what went
down there. So I leave that to your imagination. However, that didn't go down well with Ebonyi people, because you cannot from Abuja determine the destiny of Ebonyi State. Descending into the arena in matters concerning a state is the reason PDP lost Ebonyi State, not just Ebonyi. That's the reason PDP lost several other states, because it borders on arrogance for you to think that you know a particular state better than the stakeholders in that state. Now, you can imagine where the party, by the party I mean the national executive of the party, decides that they can sidestep a former Senate president and a former secretary to the government of the Federation. I don't know how many Nigerians that had held those positions in one person. Now, this is the man you think or you thought you could sidestep, come into his domain and then scatter everything, and then you expect that everything will still go your way. I don't think it works that way. I don't know what you think, but I don't think it works that way.
Yes.
So it is at the height of this tension that the PDP mainstream, because by now factions had developed in the state. My deputy, Okorie, took the opportunity to further now jump in, okay, and begin to fight me to try to also assert himself.
Is there a reason why everybody seems to be fighting you at the moment? It seems like
no, it is there is an agent provocateur, and that is the person they call the candidate, Mr. Odi. He was the one fanning the embers of all kinds of things in the state, because his ambition was so vaulting it was uncontrollable. I
was reading an article earlier where Odi's legal team said you were using the justice system. In fact, let me just quote a piece of that. It says, it is in light of the obvious abuse of the judicial process that we call, they called for a press briefing, that you are using the judicial process, abusing the judicial process, and calling for frivolous, in their words really, frivolous court cases. Cases after, according to them, the party had followed the guidelines of the Electoral Act and conducted the primaries where Ifeanyi Odi emerged. What's your thoughts on that when you hear such? Well,
I wrote a rejoinder to that press conference, and the truth was that at this point where they made that press conference, their project had collapsed, and the only way they could, these two people, Ifeanyi Odi, who is my deputy, and then a certain Mudiaga Erenede, the state legal advisor, these two had taken it upon themselves to ensure the ruin of Mr. Ifeanyi Odi.
They ruined.
Yes. And at this point, they were now short of explanation. So the only...
I need you to explain more. I mean, when you say they ruined, I want to hear more.
1 second. Now, the only explanation they had left for the man they had led to his Golgotha, Ifeanyi, was to now look for somebody to blame, a scapegoat. Now, what is frivolous litigation? Let me tell you the history of litigation. Of course, from what I already said, Asonye went to court, not me.
Of course.
Every step we are taking, I had been the one responding.
You did not initiate this?
I never initiated anything. In the same way, it is curious that after the so-called primary elections of 29th of May 2022, which was a Sunday, on Monday following, Mr. Ifeanyi ran to court, not any other person.
Okay.
And
that's interesting.
And shortly, I think 3 days after, he filed another action in the same court. Now, so who is filing frivolous actions?
Well,
now, because every other person only responded to those actions. The first action he filed was to challenge the authority of the National Executive Committee of the party to cancel an election it ordinarily fixed, which was within its own purview as the highest policy-making body of the party in the land to do. Now you run to court to challenge that, even making very ridiculous remarks, you know, on the pages of the newspaper, citing the national secretary of the party, okay, and ridiculing his office. I mean, it's in public domain, but that's not the core of this conversation. So what I said that to say is that if it weren't that they had run out of excuses, they ought to have remembered, except for selective amnesia, of course, you know, they ought to have remembered that they initiated, it was Ifeanyi and Moody Erenede that led this entire legal process. They advised to do, oh, come, let's run to court. Let's file this for you. Let's file that for you, because they're both lawyers. So
I wish they were here to balance this conversation.
No, you can invite them.
I will.
You can invite them. Let them come and say they're part of the story.
But and
let them bring facts and
Tochukwo will go for a short break at the moment. We've gone half hour, believe it or not. But we've gone a half hour, and at this point would go for a short break and return to know where the PDP is at the moment. Are they working towards resolving this once and for all, especially from the national? We'll be right back. This is Joy Asonye Live. Welcome back from that short break. Like I said earlier, we are discussing the travels in the PDP Ebonyi state, and we'll be discussing this with the Tochukwo Okorie. He is the PDP Ebonyi state chairman, and he's laid a foundation as to what happened in the state building up to the elections. And now we're moving the conversation to where the PDP is at the moment. Is there peace? Do we have the national swooping in to ensure that all parties have been reconciled?
Unfortunately, that has not happened. As a matter of fact,
in spite of losing, in spite of the fact that we saw.
Now you can imagine the impudence. Excuse my language. You know, how can a party that lost election in such an abysmal manner, in spite of high hopes that Nigerians had bestowed on PDP in the run-up to the elections.
Exactly.
You come out with such abysmal performance, and the first thing you do is to start suspending critical stakeholders of the party.
I know that Pius was suspended.
Yes. Not just Pius Anyim.
I mean, that one is quite close.
Ibrahim Shema was suspended. You are suspending former governors. You are suspending even incumbents. You cite Governor Tom for before the disciplinary committee. I mean, what do you intend to achieve?
I'm surprised your name didn't come in there.
Because before then they had purported to suspend me. In which during which period, because they thought that I was in the way of their winning election in Ebonyi. So OD complained to them, and they had me suspended arbitrarily without even well, let me not even talk about fair hearing here, because that's a strange word for them, but I'll leave that maybe for the next segment. But the point then is, PDP unfortunately has left its house in tatters, and as we are having this conversation, you are well aware that the national chairman is having issues.
Has been suspended, not just by his word, but by a court in the
the party is led by Ambassador Damagu now.
Yes,
now whether there's anything going on that we are not aware of towards putting the house in order at the moment, I am unable to say. But
would you say that the move to reconcile those that were suspended and bring them back?
That's not reconciliation.
Calling them back is not?
It's not reconciliation. Do you call that reconciliation yourself?
Would you say that those who were suspended were indeed was just some punitive measure for how it was they conducted themselves during the elections?
No.
For Chimaroke Nnamani, for instance,
no.
I mean, we saw
on
him.
No account. If the party knew its onions, if the people are the hems, and I'm saying this with every sense of boldness, if they knew their onions, it was for whatever reason. In any look, in the US, there were several Republicans who didn't support Trump, and nobody killed them. They are still senators today.
Right. But this is Nigeria. I mean,
then that is the point. Why should it be Nigeria?
Governor Tom came out very publicly to support a different candidate.
So but why not? It's at the end of the day, it is between him and his conscience. All right, that should not, attract the level of temerity that I saw in the working committee of PDP.
Over the years, we found that considered that what is termed anti-party.
On no account. Have you seen any person in his right senses whose house is on fire and is about chasing rodents? Have you ever seen that? You call that person sane? Now, how can you be hacking your best men? So who are you going to war with? You are hacking your generals simply because they disagreed with you. Was that the best approach to Chimaroke Nnamani's refusal to support the party? Did you investigate why he was doing so-called anti-party? Do you think? Did you not think or query whether you are the problem rather than Nnamani, without prejudice to whatever went down? I think that as a responsible political party, you should know how to put your best foot forward.
Why are you still with the PDP? It's very uncommon of politicians, especially in Nigeria, to go through what you have gone through and still remain in a political party. You obviously have a problem with the national leadership, with what you have said so far. Why then are you still?
Have you heard the Nigerian very popular aphorism? Soldier go, soldier come, barrack remains.
That's what of course I've heard about it, but that's what we've been used to.
Yeah,
politicians such as yourself wake up in one, and if you're not comfortable with the political party and how you've been treated so far, you move to the other.
I agree with you. Politicians without principles, they crisscross the political red lines with reckless abandon. Now, but that doesn't build democracy. That doesn't build an enduring pattern, if you like. For me, I believe in PDP. I've been in this party since 2003. Effectively, I've been through a whole lot, including running for ticket even in FCT. I spent 1.250 buying forms for House of Reps in 2016-2017 election rounds, and was all over the place in FCT, and all of that, campaigning for House of Reps. Unfortunately, Senator Philip Aduda, who was then in House of Reps, was also running for a second term in office. And naturally, the party favored his return for second term. Again, something I found odious, really.
Well, it seems like
the ground was not level at that material time, but that's a long way.
You're giving credence to exactly what I'm saying. You seem to have suffered so much from
so,
the PDP.
But that's the point I'm making.
Where lies your principle when you've seen the PDP
that's the point I'm making.
Disappoint you for so long.
That's the point I'm making. That Ayu was not the national chairman at that time,
and yet the leadership didn't favor you and your aspiration.
And it didn't have to favor me. I'm in the party to contribute the best I can to ensure that this kind of things do not continue.
With
to
court
happen.
cases that we have seen is not followed through. I mean, you just mentioned
we are still in court.
Right. Is that what you're going to? What's
we're
the
still
plan?
In court.
I just
no,
want
no,
to
the plan is listen.
What's the plan here?
Okay,
are you going to keep approaching the court when you see infringement?
Of course, there is no other way to go. I am incapable of any level of violence. I can't fight nobody physically. There is a right way to do things, which is allow the judicial system in the land, as faulty as it may seem, to do its job, and hope that they do it right. Okay. Now, until we return the party to the path of rectitude and begin to see a semblance of what democracy ought to be, I mean, going by what we have seen around the world, then I think I would not have done myself a favor, just to jump around looking for where the bread is already buttered. We have to. I don't believe in those. I mean, I don't want to be part of those who wait for cakes to be baked and so that they can cut the largest chunk. I mean, if I must deserve a chunk of the cake, then I must be part of the baking. So this is why I am still in the party. It hurt so much in 2007.
I mean, it must hurt because you are referred to as a troublemaker within the party.
Well, that's anybody's choice of words. Now, you don't shake the forest and then run outside and ask who is shaking the forest. That's practically what's been going on. You don't stir the hornet's nest. My Igbo people say you fetch ant-infested firewood and then you expect to sleep in peace. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way.
Let's go back to Ebonyi State. What's going on there right now for the PDP? I mean, having not clinched.
Let me make this point clear.
Right.
The candidacy of Ifeanyi Odi is still a subject of litigation.
It is.
It is. And as far as I am concerned,
I thought I read that the Supreme Court had laid that matter to rest.
Okay, now,
I mean, for the candidacy.
Are you familiar with the legal adage that you cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand? It's a very popular.
It is quite popular, saying. But I'm trying to connect it to what we're saying right now.
Okay, fine. You cannot build something on nothing. The foundation is not there. You don't have. If this thing is not. There's no ground for this desk to stand. It just can't stand. The process that brought Ifeanyi Odi to that point where he parades as candidate does not exist. Do you understand it? Salah Sonu, who convened a state congress that purported to have hosted primaries, where Ifeanyi was declared winner of a primary, is not known to the party. It's not known to law. Are we making sense here?
Yes, I'm
so,
trying
so
to...
this is the subject of the matter before the Supreme Court today.
Okay, so this past elections, I need to understand something.
Which is to say, if the Supreme Court agrees with us that Silas Ono had no capacity whatsoever to have convened the State Congress, then what is where did he finally come from? Where did Mr.
So
Oni
it is also safe to say that in the past elections you worked intentionally against Odi's emergence as governor? Would it be safe to say that?
Odi didn't run for governor. That's what I'm trying to let you understand.
So what did you do as a PDP member, as the chairman in Ebonyi State on election day? I just want to know, for those who sympathize with you, your supporters,
now
what did you tell them?
Here's the point. Here's the point. As important as this question is, as important as it is for me as a party leader to have won my election, I think the cohesion of the state as a whole, the health, the political health of the state as a whole is overraking. And therefore, I found it detestable that, and of course I couldn't have supported someone, a disruptor, you know, to come in and you know, jolt the fragile, you know, structure, you know, in the state. Now let me also let you know, Ebonyi South has the least voting capacity in the three zonal structure of the state, because both this Ebonyi Central and Ebonyi North are one political bloc. As a matter of fact, the majority of the people group in that area are called Umu Ekumenyi, which means they are children of the same father.
Right. So
it is political suicide for Ebonyi South to try to challenge the superiority, the electoral superiority of these people. Now, if you now go out of your way to try to dominate from the minority an obvious majority, you are committing political suicide. I would not be part of that. So it is safer.
And so what did you do on election day?
Of course, on the election day, I call for people to respect the three zonal structure as it were at this point in time, since every other thing has scattered. And by the way, PDP had no visible candidate at the time, being that the subject, I mean the candidacy, the gubernatorial candidacy of PDP in Ebonyi State was still subject and remains subject to litigation.
Right.
So it is not even clear at this point whether Ifeanyi Odi can actually beat his chest and say, I was candidate in this election.
Let's go to what you would like to see now. If you have to advise the national as to how we can get sanity within the PDP in Ebonyi State, what would your advice be?
First, I would call on the real leaders of the party. Now, understand that those of us who are in the party structure are just managers. You have a company, the shareholders are the owners of the company. The management team are just hirelings. They are paid agents of the owners to manage the affairs of the party. So let the owners of the party step in. Let them step in and compel the managers to do the right thing, which at this point should mean, one, reconciling the critical stakeholders of the party at the top, without which no other action would amount to anything good. Now, that's done, then you can then be in a good position to mediate and see if there will be a way of rectitude, okay, in the states. Because the honest truth is, these managers of the party at the center messed things up for many state chapters of the party. Even today, we are having primary elections in Kogi State, and the people there are still shouting, pointing accusing fingers on the national executive of the party, trying to impose someone on them. Where is that done? You cannot bring a man from a minority in Kogi, a place like Kogi where you know that the Galas control the votes there, and you say you want to win election, and you're bringing to impose on the people someone from a minority of minorities. Why? Because you think he supported our principal or whatever, for whatever reason.
But is that particularly a bad thing? If the person is competent enough to take the job, it doesn't matter if the person is minority.
Political parties,
the person can be sold to the majority.
Political parties exist for one purpose only: to win elections.
Right.
Now, you know, you do not have the capacity to change the tide. In any case, imposing someone, whether the person is credible, is the most credible, or is not the most credible. Of course, if he were the most credible, you will not need to impose him. The people know who is credible. Allow the people to select from among themselves the person they think is most credible and most acceptable for that office. Why the imposition? There lies the problem.
Exactly.
There lies the problem.
I agree
you
with
think you know better than the people on ground, the grassroots. You know who should win election for them.
I agree with you. There should be nothing like imposition in a democratic process. However, how does it happen?
That word imposition explains exactly what happened in Ebonyi.
Okay, but how does it happen that an entire process can be jettisoned by, I mean, the people control who emerges as, should control who emerges as candidate of a political party? So how is the national able to achieve what you term imposition when the people indeed should have the power to choose?
The Electoral Act.
That's the democracy I thought we were practicing.
You thought wrong, because we are not practicing that. The Electoral Act has given the national chairman and the national secretary, so moto, the right to submit names to INEC.
Even if the state congresses have been done, even if there's a primary election.
Even if they pick those names from the gutter and submit to INEC, INEC is bound to accept them. And no state chapter can approach INEC for anything whatsoever. But
INEC has to also supervise. INEC has to also supervise the primaries, don't there? I mean, it doesn't just happen.
That's a completely different kettle of fish. Some of these things are observed in a breach. Some of these provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act are observed in a breach, and a whole other extraneous factors, come to cover for all of those breaches. You get my drive here. So the fact that INEC is supposed to does not mean INEC does.
Always does. Okay. We're running out of time. Tochukwo Okorie, I would like you to just give us your final thoughts on the issue of the Ebonyi State PDP Travails.
Well, I do hope for the best for the party in the state. There is still room for the party to restructure itself and then and come back to winning ways. Proviso, however, is that the national executive of the party gets their acts together and retraces their steps and restrain themselves from undue meddlesomeness and interference in matters of concerning state chapters across Nigeria, across the 36 states and FCT. So if that does not happen, we will continue to have problems, because they hold the knife and the yam, the way we say in local parlance. So they hold the knife and the yam, and now believe they can now just cut to any state, whatever portion they think is fitting for them. So if they will pull back a little bit from that and allow people, even if they're having problems, let them resolve their issues internally, rather than imposing their almightiness on them, then I'm afraid nothing good will come out of it. But if they do, it is my hope that we're able to get back together, rebuild our house, and those who came from Lagos to come and scatter the party can return to Lagos and continue their business.
Okay, Tochukwo Okorie, I must thank you for being part of the program. Thank you so much for having you talk about the Ebonyi State PDP travels, but this is where we draw the curtains right here. Thank you so much. Okay, this is Joy Asonye Live. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for being part of the program. We'll be back next week with more. Do have a wonderful evening.